Welcome back to the Iron Insight. I'm one of your hosts, Bryn Wells, and today I'm joined with,
Andrew Nichols with Southern Leatherworks.
and we're joined also with Mr. DabsWellington. How's it going?
Morning, fellas. How you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Oh, not bad at all. Nice, easygoing Saturday morning so far. Was supposed to go down to State Park this morning with my nephews. They have canceled, so I might have the entire day around the garage today to clean up and possibly, I don't know, maybe even weld something today.
Yeah, you've been playing around with those transition videos recently. The the job
Well,
box, it was like a stop motion, and then you rolled out.
dude, there's at least 10 or 15 different videos living in my head right now. But I travel a lot for the school. I'm a lot busier than I've ever been. When I started my Instagram page, I was a little factory worker that didn't have a lot going on. I had a lot of time to sit there and record 10 hours a day of video and stuff. So I've got a lot of things that I want to be doing. I'm doing a lot more things to where, I had one day in the office hanging out with all the guys at the school. So I was able to bang through a couple different things I've been thinking about throughout the school year. So just because I'm not as active doesn't mean I don't want to be. So I'm very excited this summer to get to stick around a little more and be a lot more active on social media and a lot more engaged, like I used to be in years past.
Yeah, and you told us at FabTech the original reason why you got on social media, and it was kind of funny. Do you remember?
Did I tell you because I was lonely and bored?
No, no. He said it was just to see what your kid was posting and stuff to stay on track.
That was TikTok. I got on TikTok just to make sure. I started an Instagram page really just because at the time I had just got sober. I was single, so every other week at the time my remarried wife now and I were separated. So the weeks I didn't have my daughter, I was really bored. So I started, messing around a lot out in the shop, and I started doing artwork to get her interested in welding. My first couple were like Super Mario Brothers characters. She was really into, let's see, what the hell was that? Mario Kart at the time. So I was starting doing characters like that, and that is kind of what bridged the gap between things she liked and things I liked. And, that was kind of the genesis of the whole thing popping off. I didn't get on social media to be an influencer or some kind of voice. I just did it because I saw other people on there that were more talented than I was, and I really started mimicking what I saw there. I mean, the same thing I've done my entire life. I just see people that are more talented than me, try to figure out what they're doing. And I've just been doing it long enough that I'm starting to get pretty decent at a number of things anymore,
We weren't on the scene back then, so were you one of the first ones to do the mirrored stainless? Because by the time we popped
Maybe
in,
the
there was a
mirrored
couple.
stuff, there were a couple other guys, obviously the welder assassin, Josh Welton, he was doing like my first couple ones that really popped off and were popular. He was doing, let's see, the Hellcat, the Demon for Dodge and stuff like that at the time. I even asked him, it was like, hey, do you mind if I do one of those artwork pieces that you did? And he was very complimented by it and even gave me some tips and tricks. And God, when I started, it was like 8, maybe 9 years ago, there was a guy by the handle of Aaron Nexus. And you'll still see, in fact, I saw one of his mandalas just on a search on Google the other day that just randomly popped up. And you'll see his work posted on, I see you don't know shit about welding, pages like that. You'll see his shit randomly pop up on the internet. But they were kind of doing it. I'd seen guys, mark out their tools. I've got crescent wrenches with SF or dabs and stuff like that on it. But talking with these other guys and then, working in a redneck shop here in Missouri, I never saw anything larger than like number 4 little cups like that. So when I got on the Instagram, I start seeing, Furik's page and all these other guys with these large cups. So it's just, exposing myself to a lot of different things and then really starting to push and see how far you can, I posted a video the other day of real speed artwork and people couldn't believe how slow I'm honestly going, so once you start playing around with stuff, it's really neat to see how how far you can push things that normally would create a failure, on when you're just welding 12 gauge stainless at a job site, things can go south pretty quick. When you throw an inch thick backer behind it, it's pretty miraculous what kind of things you can do, how slow you can go, and how you can really cheat the system when you know how heat input and gas coverage and things like that affect things. So I get to have a lot of fun anymore.
And I wouldn't say recently, because I was still living at my parents' house when you came out with you partnered with what is the fabricators company where anybody can do
Weld Metals Online.
Weld Metals Online, that's right. And anybody can do stainless now, mirror finish stainless art with the.
It's quite humbling. I really like it now, because when people are talking shit in my comments page, I can just send them a link, and it's like, you think you can do better.
Here's a coupon code,
yeah. 99% of people, when they come back, they're like, man, that is not nearly as easy as it looks. But that's the beautiful thing about, you watch a million guys on Instagram that are welding pipe, that are doing art, that are doing huge, massive structural welds that took, days on end. They make it look easy because it's not the first time they've done it. If you're able to make something look easy, it's because you've dedicated yourself to that craft for some time, whether it be a welder, a bricklayer. I find myself watching guys work a trowel, and it's like, man, that guy has spread some of that in his lifetime, but I mean, that's the beauty of tradespeople. A lot of us, even though, look how young you guys are. I was talking with Carissa about that the other day. I watch a lot of you younger guys, and the amount of talent, networking capabilities, and things you have 15 to 20 years ahead of where I was ever at, so it's the coolest thing to watch everyone pushing one another. We all feed off of each other and motivate one another. So it's just the coolest part to see everybody getting together, making these things more available, because 10 years ago, people didn't even know that this kind of art was a thing. So it's cool to see how much more commercially available we can make this, to where, there are kids in high school that are doing this as juniors, so where the hell are they going to be in 10 years whenever, I was 30 before I ever tried it my first time. So it's like, they're going to have so much more time in their career to perfect what I barely even got started. So it's pretty exciting to see. I got to work with Peyton McKinney yesterday, and just in a 3-day period, Fast Cut shared some of her work the other day. And then to see where she was at yesterday afternoon in just 36 hours, it's really, really cool. But unless those connections are made somewhere, it's priceless to have the right answers and the right tools right when you need it. And the beauty of social media is, if you don't know, you're a couple messages away from somebody that does.
Right.
Absolutely.
And when I first started posting videos, and Andrew too, I believe, we were both only on TikTok. I was never on Instagram for welding. And I was like, man, this is cool. There's only like 5 guys out here doing this. And then I hop on Instagram. This is like 2020 or 2021, maybe, when I first started posting.
No, it was the end of 2020. It would have been the end of 2020. Yeah.
And it was kind of nuts, because it was a whole new world of other people doing the same thing. I was like, dang, I'm just an ant.
Well, it really lets you know that, I'm not alone. I was the only one in a lot of the small shops that I was coming up in that was obsessed with welding. Most people were just there to punch in, to punch out, bitch about it the whole time they were there. I actually enjoyed what I did, or at least I tried to enjoy it the most that I could for the 8, 10, or 12 hours that I was there. It's still work. Don't get me wrong, but you can look at life through rose-colored glasses, even if you're working for somebody else's dime. So it's just cool to get exposed and see that there are other guys out there, are other gals out there that are just as obsessed with these different processes as I am, to where, like I said, it kind of motivates you when you're stuck around all those guys that are just like, this sucks, I hate my life. It's easy to get caught in that same palindrome mental state. It's cool to have a little bastion or place to go to where other people get as excited about this shit as I do. It turns out that there are other weld nerds out there. I just had to find the right place to find my tribe, if you will. And when I got on Instagram, it was like TikTok was when you got onto it in 2020. It was not completely brand new, but there was a huge bump in welding videos, especially because that was right about the time that cell phone cameras were able to start capturing things without, the light just washing everything out. So I got fortunate and got into the social media side right as it was popping off on Instagram, and did journalism and photography all through high school, so that worked very well. All the weird random shit I've done through life all has just kind of worked out to be an influencer or whatever the hell people call me anymore. It's just I like sharing the things that excite me, and it turns out there's a lot of other people out there that are into the same weird shit that I am, and it's neat.
It's kind of crazy that you said everything in your life has worked up to this and kind of all helped, because it's kind of similar for me. I mean, when I was primetime COVID is when I was streaming video games, so I already knew editing videos and a little bit about a little bit. So that also kind of helped out in my way. But what was it like going from welding all day to AWA? Did you start as a teacher or?
So no, I started out there. I started out there volunteering. So I worked a couple different open houses. I did like an artwork demo in conjunction with the American Welding Society out there. So I've worked with Adam, the director of training, at previous jobs and a couple of the other instructors locally before. So I knew of the place. I knew all the guys. They just didn't have, they just opened up, so it was and still is a growing and smaller operation. But at first it was tough. I really did and still do miss welding quite a bit. I was either a production welder, grinder, laser operator, some sort of fabrication work for the last 25 years. And always being active, moving works very well for my hyperactivity and stuff. This job required me to do a lot different things. I'm talking with high school counselors, instructors, people in the office, so I've got to put on a lot different face than you're used to at a factory. If I'm not really concentrating, I come off pretty rough around the edges in front of white collar people due to 25 years of blue collar work. So that is definitely something that I've got to be able to switch on and off depending on the company that surrounds me. The traveling is something that I had to get used to. The only times I've traveled for work in my career would be when I worked for Stork. They got bought out by a larger conglomerate. So for like the last 4 years I was there, as that company would absorb smaller companies, I got to go there and really piss everybody off. So I'd go to these new companies and tell them that they were doing everything wrong and they need to do it our way. It made me the bad guy, but it also let me know that, man, there is something to this traveling, getting out, meeting people. By that time I was on social media, so I understood the value of networking. Like I'm sure that you guys have realized now that you've started going to Fab Tech and seen how that can explode, so just one thing leads to another, so on and so forth. And, I'm getting better at it. At this point, by the end of a school year, I can go through my entire spiel. I've done 9 months of presentations in front of classes of anywhere from 10 to 90 students. And I've been doing it. This will be the end of my 4th traveling season. So I've gotten a lot better at it. I wasn't terrible at public speaking by the time I got hired at this position. The first time I was on a Fab Tech floor and had a microphone in front of me, I was petrified. But this was something I wasn't necessarily as good at as I wanted to be. So I knew that by getting out and traveling more, I would get better at that. I would get better at the public speaking. I've had enough of a chance in my career to get good at welding. I'm at the point in my life now where I'm trying to become as well-rounded in every facet as possible to where I can be the biggest value currently at the school and then wherever I may go moving forward. I'm at the point now, I hadn't welded pipe or hell, honestly, TIG welded for about 2 months. I'm to the point where I can snap back into that pretty quickly. There's a lot of other things I need to learn. I guess what I'm saying is I'm really just trying to round out my toolkit at this point, so it does keep me away from a lot of the things I love. But I do get the opportunity, like today. I'm going to go out and probably weld for 4 or 5 hours, just because randomly my schedule allows it because somebody canceled. This summer I'll be out teaching every day, so I'm sure welding day in and day out will be something that I will embrace. But even then, at the end of the summer, I'm sure that I'm going to be ready to get back on the road. For me, I always feel like the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. I like to juggle a lot of things at once to where I never get bored of the same old thing.
Do you have a company car?
Absolutely. Yeah. I put, I do about 30,000, 35,000 miles a year anymore now. So
that's what I was going to ask.
Yep. Yeah. No, I'm, this year was the most travel ever. We're looking at splitting Missouri. I'm not exactly sure how we're going to split territories next year. Hopefully I won't have to be on the road as much. But I mean, at the same time, I would rather put myself out there and know that the school is benefiting it. I've got plenty of time in my adult life here to get older and slow down. I can push it into overdrive for a couple more years if that's what it takes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm sure I'll say the same bullshit until I got one foot in the grave. Well, we'll give her one more year. That's the kind of attitude that got me to where I'm at. So I'm just going to keep pushing forward, and we'll see where it takes everything.
Didn't you have a TikTok that got hacked or banned with like?
So my first Instagram page got banned. It's actually here. Let's see. It's actually still up there at, I think it's 135K or something. So somebody was going to turn it into a t-shirt page or something like that, but I caught it before they were able to sell it. Let's see here. It's account 135K maybe. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, see, look at that. Oh, hell, there I am. But yeah, so they hacked me. I got a message from Instagram, and when I went back in there to try to regain my content, they had switched the correspondence language to Vietnamese. So as I was trying to work through all this with Instagram, I had to cut, copy, and paste, translate everything. So it was more of a headache than I was willing to deal with. So I just started a new page. I knew what it took to build a following, so I just figured it was easier to go through it again than just. I didn't want to be one of those pages on Instagram that said hacked at 135K. I think that's just a token bullshit way of saying I only had the balls to do this once. So I cut my losses. I didn't cry over spilled milk. I started another page, and here we are again. This time it was just a little quicker and easier because I knew the steps to take and the path had already been cleared. So here we are again.
When did you first lay your first bead? Is that your dog?
What? Yeah, she's over there chewing a bone. I wanted to make sure you guys weren't listening to her like whack away on a rawhide or something here. But what was that question?
When did you first lay your first bead?
Oh, shit. It would have probably, my first bead ever would have been at Nick Stoker's house off of Pin Oak Road. Here, hold on one second.
All right.
Give me that bone. It would have been out at Pin Oak Road. We were tearing apart like forks on bicycles and trying to make like 4-wheel bikes and stuff like that. But that was as remedial as it gets. My first real bead that would have been like, oh, right, this is what I'm going to do, would have been at Washington Metal Fabricators with Jay March. So he was like the top dog, the big bad welder at the shop I started at. And, he was the type of guy that would viciously bust your balls. But at the same time, he would show you a thing or two. So I understood the assignment there, if you will. I knew that I'd let him bust my balls in a fair trade for the information that I needed to get out of him, and built a pretty good friendship. I'd buy him at Crocco store every day after work. I'd buy him a 16-ounce beer, and until he finished that, I would get free answers to my questions, and that is all it took. A couple weeks there, and I was one of the only guys there that was eager enough to ask him questions and then listen to him and then work at getting better. And there's a lot of guys at shops that will do the same if you're just willing to listen and understand that they have developed something of value over their career. A lot of guys could be assholes, because they've been through a lot of shit. Myself personally, if you come at me wrong on a job site, it's like a game of tennis. If you're an asshole, I'm going to be an asshole back. But if someone approaches you and is nice, I'm going to take time out of my day to help you out as well. So just remember that, whether it's messaging, whether it's job site, most guys are willing to help you out as long as you're not a dick in the process,
Right. Did you, back in 2016, did you purge that Arctic mug or?
Oh, no. So those were interesting. So those are vacuum sealed. They're a complete pain. If you drill a hole in the bottom of it and you get rid of that vacuum, then you can purge them with argon or something like that. But that stuff is incredibly thin, like 22, 24, very, very thin. The easiest way I found to get a bottle like that is to just cheat, roll one, and tack it or double face tape it onto something.
Huh.
Just cheat a little bit.
Was Carp one of your best students?
Carp was by far one of my favorite. I did not get to spend enough time. When Carp and I were working together, it was mostly artwork and having the fun stuff. So that is definitely what made him my favorite. I don't get to spend a lot of time with the students when they're welding pipe, and that's not necessarily my background. I never welded any pipe. The only thing I would have ever rounded or welded that was round in my career would have been tubing. Smaller stuff, seamless. So that's not something. I'm getting better at it now. But that's not something I really judge a lot of the students on. My expertise is fabrication, sheet metal, flat stuff. But Carp he's one of the fun ones. He's one of the ones that comes in there, is willing to show up early, willing to stay late. He's one of the guys that is going to get it. And we get a lot of students like that. But Carp was one that I knew before I worked at the school from Instagram. So he was a special circumstance because it was someone that I knew, wound up coming to the school. And then, now I'm friends with, him and Eve. We hang out outside of school. We went to Fab Tech together and run around Chicago, on scooters in the middle of the night. He's come down to St. Louis. We've hung out. We've rode e-bikes around town, and stuff like that. In fact, the place that we are supposed to go today with my nephews, the next time that Eve and Carp are down, we're going to go to Elephant Rocks and go hiking, so it's just another opportunity where I get to meet cool people. Like I said, if it wasn't for welding, I wouldn't have any friends at all. Every one of my friends is someone I've either met on Instagram at a Fab Tech or something. So it's just it's neat to be able to befriend people that are just as weird and obsessed with the darkness as I am. And Carp's definitely one of the good ones. But we had every class we get there, we had Nicholas and Carter and a couple, there's Caden, there's some guys that always stand out that, it's usually the goofier ones that act like me a little bit. Because I see pieces of myself in a lot of these young guys,
Right. How many? Well, I guess, do you guys do like a semester system or?
So we are, a lot of post-secondary schools will operate on a rolling schedule. So they can offer start dates every other Monday, every other Tuesday out of the entire year. I understand why they do that. It generates income for a school 25 times a year, so you get paid every other week, just like most of us do. We currently have 5 start dates every spring and 5 start dates every fall. Our day shift and evening shifts start on the same day. So that really means that all of our starts happen within basically a month to 6 weeks of one another. All of our students start on the same day and will graduate very, very close to the same time, just depending on when they get a job offer and when they leave. But that way we work through the classroom period the exact same way that the curriculum was written. Those rolling classroom schedules, the only way they can plop you in an open seat is if they start that book from the beginning, work all the way through it, and just keep working through it. So whenever you start on day 1, you could pop in and they're in the middle of chapter 12. Well, that's where you start on day 1. If that's the way the curriculum was supposed to be taught, that's the way the book would be written. But like I said, the only reason a school does that is to keep the machine going. You know what I'm saying? So it generates more income for them, but it makes the classroom sessions a little more confusing for the students, depending on when and where they popped into that discussion. I don't know about you guys, but my first day of welding school should not be in chapter 14 on TIG pipe takeoffs. It should be on something very relative and novice, like pad beads. So that is where every student is going to start with us. The first day of welding, everyone's going to go out there with 724 and just run pad beads, whether they've never turned on a machine or whether they've been welding for a couple hundred hours at a career center. We need to make sure that there are no gaps in anyone's training from previous instruction. But then you also need to make sure that they understand the steps it's going to take to pass at the post-secondary level. You know, getting it right just once isn't going to cut it. We're breeding consistency, not luck. And unfortunately, a lot of places are okay with just getting something right once. You know, that may cut it, but we cover a lot of ground in 960 hours. Once these guys get into TIG pipe, we need to make sure that they're resilient enough that if we ask them to do a 60-10, 70-18 combo weld after they've been in TIG pipe for 6 weeks and haven't touched it, they need to have grasped it that good that they have the elasticity to go back at it at any point and still be at the level they were when we originally tested. You know, so by rigorously testing them over and over and over and making sure that they are consistent, making sure they're all on the same page. You know, the other cool thing there by making sure everyone moves along together is that they're building camaraderie. You know, if you're all fighting the same fight, if you're on the lunch table and you, man, overhead's kicking my ass today. 3 other heads are going to come off the desk and go, guess what? It's kicking my ass too. It's terrible. But when everybody's in something together, you start to build bonds and relationships, the kind of relationships that are going to be very, very beneficial when a lot of these students decide to travel together. You know, 6 months down the road, a lot of these guys are going to go from strangers to bedfellows that travel together. You know, so it's the time that we're going through the hardest part of our curriculum that a lot of these guys are going to realize that they're fighting this fight together and that they're not in it alone. You know, so that is just another way that we try to make sure that, you know, Adam comes from the high school level. There are a lot of things about that structure that work. So he took that, and the only difference is we get, instead of 240 hours like you do at the high school level, we get 480 or 960 hours with them. The only difference between the high school level is that we're private. So that really allows us to focus on exactly what the students need versus what guys in Jefferson City or guys in DC think that welders need to learn. Guys in suits and ties have no idea what the hell we're out here doing on job sites. You know, so we certify to AWS, ASME, but then as students get better and start to realize what they want to do with this education, being private allows us to curb the last couple months of this to directly suit them. You know, if I was going to school and I knew that I wanted to be a sanitary welder, wouldn't do us a lot of good to have it in the curriculum that every student has to do this part of the structural program. If that student's never going to use it, then he's paying for things and wasting time in a booth on stuff he's never going to use. You know, so that's something else that drives me absolutely bonkers about welding schools. You'd be hard pressed to find me ever say that number one, I'm the best at anything, or number two, that our school is the best. Because to be the best, you have to understand exactly what the guy on the other side of this screen needs.
Right.
By just saying the best, that's some bullshit salesman jargon. We're the best. We're number one. It's like that cartoon that shows the welders up on the podium, and even the guy in second place is saying he's the best. To be the best, you have to understand what the customer needs. So our students, when they graduate, those are the people that can say we're the best. Until they've received what was promised, we're just something that is available. You know why McDonald's never has to remind people that they have the best fries?
Because they're the best.
That's right. They don't have to get out there and shout it every time and remind people, because people know. I want to do something so good here. I left a very cushy office job that was air conditioned. I never sweat a day in my life. I left all that to work harder than I ever have before for someone that I completely trust in. I've watched Adam. I've watched the impact that he's had in young men and women at the high school level throughout his career. And I have the opportunity to help grow something here that I really think is making a difference and an impact. I'm able to do and offer something now that I wish I would have had when I was your age. And that's pretty freaking cool.
And that camaraderie in welding school that you spoke about is so crucial. By the end of my degree, I went around in that last week and I asked everybody phone number, email, phone number, everything from them. And another thing that I've spoke about on this podcast before is competition. In welding school is crucial. You got to be competitive, because then it pushes everybody to be better if you're competitive with each other. At the end of the day, you're all friends. Maybe not. I had an instance like that, but now we're friends because we pushed each other all. 4 years, because we were at the college in high school, a dual credit, and then we went there for college. And at the end of it, we were like, "Hey, you're pretty good. You're an all right guy." It's just crucial in welding school.
Well, and you don't have to be friends to be friendly. You know what I mean? There's going to be a lot of guys on job sites that you don't necessarily just love to hang out with, but you can put your shit aside long enough to get a project finished. And you see that there are a lot of contrary personalities at a welding school, but this is part of it as well. You've got to learn how to deal with one another to get from point A to point B. As soon as you punch out, you guys don't have to talk to each other anymore, but we're going to have to figure out how to bridge that gap of uncomfortability and at least learn how to work with one another,
Right. That's one of the reasons I left my last job, is because kind of what you were talking about earlier, the guys that just come in for a paycheck, they don't love it. And they don't.
Yep.
I feel like with welding or any trade, to be doing this miserable work. No, I'm just kidding. It's not that miserable. But you got to learn to love it. When I first started, I was so upset that I was in high school and doing an apprenticeship at the local shop. And my last day of junior year, my boss came into my cell and he said, "All right, see you tomorrow, 5 a.m." And I was upset. I was like, "Man, my last summer, I gotta work full time, 5 a.m. to 5, my whole last summer of high school." And then like 2 days later, I was like, you know what? This isn't so bad. This is fun. I'm gonna grow. I get to meet these people that are now friends for the rest of my life, and I can call on if I ever have a question or something like that. It's something you got to learn to love to really do it for the rest of your life, I think, is what I've realized over my past couple of years.
If you got fired tomorrow, you'd be scrambling to find a job that was half as good as the one you've got today, So it's like, it is whatever you make of it. If you're not happy with where you're at and you just check out, that's not going to get you to a different place. So that's how people just get stuck and they start hating life. And you see those guys, you walk into shops and they've just got this blank stare. You don't ever have to check out. You can continue to get better at everything, whether, I never went to school, but I still managed to get better. The pace at which I did it was just a slower and more constant evolution. By going to school, you can speed up that evolution in the beginning, but at some point we're going to have to be able to learn how to get better on the job. the benefit from school and different things like that is not only does it, you have teachers and all the things in front of you, but it gives you a framework of how to learn, of how to think outside the box, of how to question things, how to learn from your mistakes. That way, that's the only way I learned, learning from my mistakes and then asking other people questions. On the job sites, people don't always answer your questions. So you have to make the same mistake over and over and over before you figure it out. Some people just make that mistake and look at it and go, well, that's the way it is. I look at it and every time try something different. And as long as you keep figuring things out, that's how I stay happy. You know what I mean? Just don't settle. Everybody out there listening to this can be a hell of a lot better tomorrow as long as they work a little for it today, a little for it tomorrow, so on and so forth. Great things are achieved in tiny, tiny little increments of failure and success. Then failure, then success. Most people just give up when they fail at something once. That's just setting the goal for tomorrow. As long as you're moving the chains a little bit, I hope I fail at something every day because it gives me something I need to work on tomorrow, And the better you get at tackling those small things today, we can start tackling larger things tomorrow. And, that's how I'm on a podcast today, because I had a silly, stupid idea in my one-car garage of a townhouse 8 years ago. Just a little more every day.
Right.
You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just ask questions, get out there and network. Like you said, start asking for emails, phone numbers. It's just like getting a date. If nobody says yes, you just have to ask more people. Play the numbers. Eventually things are going to happen if you just keep going back to it. Just keep chopping at that tree. Eventually it's going to come down. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I never realized how important and effective networking would be until I went to FabTech. I mean, so many opportunities have opened up for me through networking at trade shows or literally anything. I'll meet a welder. I was at a Nebraska Husker football game tailgate in the parking lot of the company Huddle, if you know what that is. They do like sports clips and stuff. And we were at a tailgate in the parking lot, and I saw this guy sitting next to me. I didn't know him because we just had a mutual friend who was throwing the tailgate. And me and my buddy Aiden goes, "What do you think that guy does for a living?" And I was like, "Looks like a welder." Like, because he had long hair, tattoos. And then I asked him, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" He's like, "Oh, I'm a welder for Union Pacific." I was like, "Oh," and then we had an hour-long conversation just networking about, welding. It's just insane, the power of networking.
With my traveling and, the fact that I'm just going out and meeting welding students, I am pretty good at profiling anymore. You can spot them as soon as they walk into a gymnasium, and it works when you're at Walmart. It's like, I've got pretty good, 3/4 of the time I'm right anymore. Yeah. But I mean, it doesn't matter. I was a punk skater in high school. It doesn't matter what area we're coming from. We've kind of all got the same demeanor. Well, I honestly think that there's a certain genotype mindset that gravitates towards welding. I find calm in the dark, and I talk to a lot of other people that say that, there's so much going on until they get under the hood. So I really think that there is a special type of person that just happens to gravitate towards this kind of work, and the more of us I meet, turns out the more of us I like.
I was listening to Jason Becker's podcast yesterday, and somebody said something about hating getting under the hood because a lot of people say just everything goes away. But then this guy was saying that every time he gets under the hood, he remembers all the bad stuff and shit shows he's got going on in his life. But I think that's one of the most beneficial parts about getting under the hood for 12 hours a day. It's just being able to think through the problems you're having on in your outside life. It wasn't Jason that said this; it was a guest. But yeah, I don't know.
You have to be good at self-reflection because you're going to spend a lot of time with yourself.
Right.
It's honestly a lot like driving. I get to do a lot of both anymore, and welding and driving are a lot the same. Once you get good enough at welding, you kind of can look around. The same thing with driving. At first you got both hands on the wheels. they both give you a lot of time to think. But I find both get a lot easier as long as you got a good solid podcast or some rock and music, you know.
Is that how you stay awake? Because my dad's a salesman and he travels, I mean, as far as Pennsylvania, Germany last month. Like, I can't stay awake on a drive for my life.
So I do, I probably caffeinate more than I should. I don't eat a lot when I'm on the road. I find that like when I eat and then drive, I get really, really sleepy. So a lot of times, you know, I have breakfast in the morning, I'll work all day, and then I don't eat till I get to my hotel room or something at night. The first year I was traveling, I ate a lot of Airheads gummies and Lifesavers gummies. You know, every time you get tired, just something real nice and sweet like that would just kind of help get you down the road. But anymore, it's I've got my travel, my milk runs, as I call them, kind of figured out to where typically it's only 2 or 3 hours a night that I'm driving. You know, I can get 6 to 8 hours any direction as long as I'm doing it 2 or 3 hours east and then 2 and 3 hours west. I can get all the way out to, you know, Kansas, Iowa, Illinois, Kentucky, Indiana, and then back to Missouri all in the same week without having to just completely kill myself 6 hours, 8 hours at a time. You know what I'm saying?
Right. No, are you ever in Nebraska?
I don't think. I was been to Ark City. I've been out to Kansas. I don't think I've ever been to Nebraska.
I'm in
Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet. Working on it.
I'm in Ark City once a month. It's funny that you said that town of all.
Well, you know, that's where Bob used to be. You know, so this year I spent a lot more time southeast. You know, so I'm just always checking new places. You know, I'll take a couple odd trips out to just see how things are, a little test market, if you will. And just, you know, it's kind of an ever-growing list of places I'm going and checking into, just to really see where the most interesting, the highest volume, and the most talented kids are from. I find cornfields and soybean fields. As long as you find either of those, there's going to be talented, hardworking farm kids in the vicinity.
That's all of Nebraska.
Yeah, right.
Another thing about Nebraska is it's kind of an untapped side to what you could have, because we have 3 major community colleges that kids go to for welding, but we don't have just a welding school in Nebraska. Like me and Andrew.
Well, I've always wanted to get out to Omaha before. That's where 311's from, so I just never made it.
Yeah, I mean, Omaha's probably the closest community college to you, and also our biggest city.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, they have Metro Community College, I think, and they win Skills USA Nebraska every year because their whole curriculum is based off of Skills USA. They train for it their entire degree. So I think they've been undefeated for like 19 years now.
Yeah, I have not looked into high school structure or any of the colleges really in Nebraska yet. I've started looking into Iowa a little bit this year for next school year. You know, but I mean, once you start getting too far south, too far east, you know, there is competition. But that, once again, competition is a great thing. You know, the fact that there are a number of these welding schools just makes each of us, you know, it's like being right next to another talented welder. You don't want anyone to outdo one another. So the more options there are, the more it's going to push each of us to up that ante. You know, competition is a beautiful thing in every area of industry. It just drives innovation, you know. So people ask me that a lot of times. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? I think they're all great. More options are fantastic for the consumer. And then the industry will drive out any of the ones that aren't really there to offer exactly what they're promising. You know, so it is perfect. I just hope that people understand the value of getting out there and getting some boots on the ground experience with these places before they just listen to people on the internet, and myself included. I don't want people to hear something I said somewhere and just immediately rush into registration. Come out and pay me a visit. come out and meet the guys and make damn sure that this is the perfect choice for the next 6 months of your life, because it is not something to be taken lightly. This could pave the way for your future, right, wrong, or indifferent, you know?
Right. So how long have you been on Team Feronius?
So that's the whole reason I ever went to FabTech. I went there with the sole intention of meeting Chris Bliven and working with Fronius. And that's been 7 or 8 years. So
Wow.
that would have been since FabTech Atlanta. Yeah, 7 or 8 years ago now.
Speaking of FabTech Atlanta, before this past Chicago, didn't your car get the window get smashed and broken into?
Yeah, so we were having a wonderful evening at the Hard Rock Hotel. You know, I don't drink, so I was at FabTech. A lot of times I volunteer to be the designated driver for all of my friends. We were at the Hard Rock, everybody hanging out, everybody having a good time. Come around the corner to this parking lot, and there's a couple groups of people that looked rather intimidating and incredibly pissed off, you know. So I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. All of their windows had been broken out, and of course I looked at mine. Mine had been broken out. The funniest part of this whole story was, though, there was like $3 or $4 grand worth of welding supplies, hoods, and shit like that in my trunk. These people broke my windows and probably got $1.50 worth of change and a couple welding stickers out of my cup holders. That's it. The worst part about it was I had to drive home through the Smoky Mountains in November, sans one window, you know, so it was a little breezy and cold. But it was all the reason I needed to put Atlanta in my rearview mirror. I hate that place. It's a terrible town. It really is.
Amen.
It's my least favorite
Absolutely
location.
hate it. It's the
Smells
worst city
like
in the world.
It smells like urine everywhere you go. I don't know. People talk about Hotlanta like it's this great place. I have never once been there and been impressed.
Right.
And that was even before I got my shit broken into. Now it was just the cherry on top. Like, well, I'm glad we've covered all our bases here, you know.
Me and Andrew, we weren't too big. Well, that was my first time in Atlanta. I think, Andrew, you've been there before. What? You went to school down there for robotics.
Yeah, I actually went up there for a robotics course, yeah.
But
it sucked then too, don't worry.
the nicest part,
you know, I'm sure people have been through St. Louis and said the same thing, you know, but it's not a place, you know. I've had if this will tell you anything, I've had much better luck in Chicago.
I actually liked Chicago.
I love Chicago.
That was
to visit. I don't think I could ever live there, but it's a lot of fun for 2 or 3 days.
Right. That was my first time there. 2 or 3 days is about right, because I was there 6 days this year for FabTech.
Fucking feet will fall off, dude. If you're there for 8 days straight, you'll be on nubs. Too much walking.
Dude, the entire last day, I stayed in my hotel. I even DoorDashed food because I did not want to go out. And then,
well,
it turns out it was an all vegan restaurant, so I had like vegan chicken Alfredo.
I don't lie, you up there taking shots of wheatgrass. You know how to party. Well, I tried to keep up with Carp and Eve for 3 days in a row, and man, for 44, I'm still pretty spry, guys. But you get me chasing a couple 20-year-olds for 2 or 3 days straight, I'm gonna need an 18-hour nap after something like that, you know.
Yeah, FabTech's got to be busy for you too. I mean,
I'm fortunate enough to get pretty well booked out for those events anymore. Once again, you know, it is. I'm very fortunate in that regard.
Yeah, right. Like Chicago was fun, more fun than Atlanta. I think it could have been because in Atlanta I wasn't a part of any crews like the Edge Army or Everlast, so I didn't have anything to do. Me and Andrew, we pretty much just stayed in the hotel. There was a Chick-fil-A in the hotel that we ate at every day, and then but Chicago, like the Navy Pier, the the Ferris wheel, and then like a speedboat tour. But the boat broke down in the middle of what lake is that? Michigan?
Lake Michigan?
Yeah. We were on a nighttime speedboat tour of the city, and our boat broke down. And then
shit.
We had to get towed by the other boat, and then somebody fell off of the other boat into the water. And it was like I don't know, maybe 9 p.m. So that lake's got to be freezing. What was that? September, I think, this year.
Yeah, it'd be pretty chilly still.
Yeah.
I like Chicago though. It's close enough. Like years previous, my wife Heather's taken the train up there before, so it is, we go up there a couple times a year just for shits and giggles. But it is by far my favorite one. I'm excited to see how the one in Florida is this year. That will be an interesting change of venue, with the AWS being down there. I'm sure they'll roll out the red carpet for the first time. But no, it should be fun. I'm looking forward to it. And I'm glad that they really switched the dates up for that Chicago one, because it used to be one of my least favorites when it was in late November. Oh. Chicago in late November sucks, but man, early October, it is beautiful. All the Grant Park and all the different changing leaves and everything. As long as you get up there and there's not some big riot, Chicago's quite a beautiful place. Rent a bike or some scooters. You can see the whole 5 mile stretch there pretty easily in a couple hours.
Right. I don't like a lot of cities like San Francisco. San Francisco was pretty cool. DC's cool, but Atlanta sucked. I don't like LA, but Chicago was one of them ones. It was like, it didn't give me a city feeling. You know what I mean?
Yep. Chicago, Indianapolis, Louisville's been pretty cool. There are some pretty neat. I like a big city where I can park my car, get around, and then just walk around, use some kind of public transportation, to where I can just park and then enjoy myself. I get enough time on the road. If I'm going to a city, I want to be able to, I really like the speed of walking or bike riding or something like that versus driving, to where you can really kind of drink in the sights and sounds and feel like you're part of the city,
Right. And Andrew's from Florida, so.
Yeah. So y'all are coming down to me this time. Thank God.
What part of Florida?
Ocala, Florida, Central Florida.
Okay.
So I'm just an hour and a half
ready
north
to
of
move down
Orlando.
to Florida. Yeah. I love Florida. I'll be in the Gulf Coast at some point before I got my foot in the grave. That's for sure.
I've never been to Florida, so I'm really excited for this year.
Oh hell, I'm leaving in 9 days for Gulf Shores, so I cannot freaking wait.
Heck yeah!
But is Orlando?
I get some beach time in before my class starts this summer. So,
for me going to Florida for the first time, is Orlando the city that you want to be in for? Like I don't know.
It depends what you're looking for. When I'm going to Florida, I'm looking for white sandy beaches and boardwalks to ride my bike on. So I'm looking to. We're close enough to the hangout in Gulf Shores that my daughter and her friend that we're bringing can walk there and have their fun. But we're close enough to Gulf State Park that the wife and I can duck out and do our old people stuff. So, we're kind of at the cusp of entertaining teenagers and entertaining old people. So we've kind of got to, if it was up to me, we'd probably be more on the Fort Morgan side of the Panhandle where there aren't any people. But like I would imagine by next year with Ava being 15 and then 16, that we'll probably be heading closer east, to Destin and even larger towns just to accommodate the things that they're going to be into the next couple of summers. You know what I mean? Right. I'm saying that it would definitely, Orlando would probably be something more that some younger individuals would be interested in than what I'm looking for when I go to Florida.
Speaking of bikes, you're a big cyclist, aren't you?
Yeah, used to do a lot more mountain biking and stuff. I got Heather on an e-bike last year. She never really rode bikes at all. She really liked it. So now we both have e-bikes, and my house is like 4 miles away from the Katy Trail. So that is 200 something miles from damn near Kansas City all the way to St. Louis. A complete closed, used to be an old railway that is like just a bike trail now. So we get out there and do a lot of scenic tours of Missouri.
So back to AWA, where is that at? Union,
Missouri. So 45 minutes west of St. Louis.
And I saw you post the other day about those stacked job boxes. Is that available information?
Yep. So all of our fall students, right now, spring students still get like a tool bucket. It's the pack that every student has got up until this point. So now our school is like 1,000 feet up the road from an Ace Hardware. So every student, once they started, was going down to Cotton's Ace Hardware and buying a pack out. So we worked a deal with them that we would just buy like 150 a year. So we get a lot better deal than just an individual student could. So we've made that part of their new kit. So every student is getting a 3-tiered pack out. The bottom one will hold their hood, a lot of the larger stuff. The middle container has got a couple compartments in it for a lot of their different, our medium-sized tools. And then the top one has got like a clear top to where it have all their TIG consumables and all of their smaller little pieces. And then we had a bunch of students get hired by a boiler service agency or staffing agency. It was like an entire class. So at one point last year, we had 16 students all leave that all needed job boxes like at the exact same time. So that spurred the conversation of getting a specific road-ready gang box. So for incoming students, everybody is going to get the pack out. And then any students, because not every student's going to need a gang box. Not everybody's going to need $1,500 worth of tools. But those that do, once again, since we order in much higher volume than your typical consumer, we can ensure that every student gets exactly what they're going to need on the road, assemble it, have it road ready for them, and then also offer them quite a hefty discount than if they were going to go out and purchase all of these things on their own. And then, of course, they get the tool list and the links from where we order it to where when they're on the road, if anything is ever missing out of that box, they know how, where, and when to order it. And a lot of time those things can even come through Amazon to where they'll be shipped to the job site or wherever they are. That's how I get stuff shipped to the hotel I'll be staying at the day following, so it makes it pretty easy. It really was because of student necessity and request that things like this come along. We listen to the students. We listen to the employers. That is why our program went from a 5-month to a 6-month a year ago. Just as you and the three of us, we're always growing and getting better. The school is as well. Students, when they come back, they always say, well, why didn't we have this when we were here? It's like, well, that's because that's how growth works. You guys had the advantage of, being one of the first people to ever get to come here, but by listening to you, we got better. And that's going to continue to happen forever. So that's the other exciting part about it. I think we're great now. I can't wait to see what we grow into 10 years down the road. The school, I can't wait to see myself personally. I can't wait to see where you guys are at 10 years from now. That's the awesome thing about hard work. To see where all this leads us when it finally comes to fruition,
Right. And one more thing about the school growing is you guys throw a massive competition every year for high school seniors, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. That would be, the culmination of my year's work, basically. I'm not taking credit for all of this whatsoever. There are so many moving pieces. Rob, our owner, is great at throwing a huge party. He owned restaurants. So he takes care of, does a fantastic job of making sure that, everyone is fed, that there is a huge party going on. Adam, the director of training, makes sure that we have got tons and tons of different hiring companies out there to where, it's not just a competition, but while the parents are out there cheering on their students, they get to meet the employers that could eventually offer career paths for these young men and women. It is a great way for everyone that's in attendance to come out there and meet with the instructors. I'm sure that you built a very good relationship with your instructor at your trade school. I know that Adam has been the best man in so many different weddings and things like this, so that is a huge impact that this person could have on someone's life. So making sure that of the 5 that we have, that's someone that you really gel with, can easily be taken care of at an event like that. And then it gives me the opportunity to showcase a lot of my friends, a lot of the companies that I've worked for over the years and things like that. So it is a huge party, but then really it is the first of many networking events that these students get to be the part of while they're considering enrolling, and then the entire time they are attending. Because we've got any student that would come out there, if they compete in that one, they're there for that. If they're attending school, they get to be a student and see next year's competition. So it's very cool to watch them from start to finish, and get to see how things materialize there. It's my favorite event of the year, and it's getting 40 to 50 people larger every year. So it's like, man, where's it going to be 5 years from now? It's really neat to see investment and growth year after year after year.
Right. I even know people from the high school dual enrollment at the college here that went. One of the kids, actually, my mom babysat when he was a kid. And
that's awesome.
Him and his buddy went from Grand Island, Nebraska.
That is awesome. We had kids from Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee. Man, there was some really weird state just out of, I think, Wisconsin or something like that. So I mean, we're getting a pretty decent pull, and as long as I can get enough mileage next year, hopefully we'll pull from even further.
Right. Well, I think we got about a little over an hour of good footage, and here's something we ask all of our guests before we end.
The hard-hitting question. Here it comes.
It's not hard. It's just
Here
fun.
It comes. Oh, I don't know. It's pretty hard.
What is your favorite genre of music to listen to while you work or weld?
All right. Well, I can't just answer anything straight up. So I've got to segment what I'm listening to for what kind of process I'm doing. So when I'm welding artwork, it's got to be like EDM. I need something that has got like 150 to 160 beats per minute, because I'm using that to gauge how long I'm pausing on each side of a weave. When I'm tacking things together, if I'm listening to music, it's going to get me too amped up. I get excited very easily. So I've got to listen to like podcasts, something that is very slow and metered while I'm trying to read prints, put things together. Otherwise, I'm going to get a couple steps ahead of myself and have to get the cutoff wheel out. But once I get under the hood and I'm welding, it's either going to be reggae rock like 311 or 70s road trip music. I either want it to be that reggae awesome stuff like I'm on a beach, or I want to feel like I'm in the backseat of my mom's Caprice Classic in the late 80s. For real. That's why I love riding my bike for the same reason. It makes me feel like I'm a kid. When I listen to music from the late 70s, it makes me feel like I'm like bouncing up and down on my parents' lap or something, listening to, the stuff they did when I was a kid.
Right. Well,
the classics, man.
Thank you, everybody listening, for starting your week off right with the Iron Insight every Monday morning at 4 a.m. Thank you, Dabs, for coming on.
Brandon, Andrew, thanks for having me on. And once again, apologies for having some things come up the last time we tried to do this. I hate being late. I hate standing people up. I'm really sorry that I was able to do both at the same time to you fellas. So thanks for giving me the opportunity to circle back around and get this one in the tank.
Absolutely. Stuff happens. I've been Bryn Wells.
Hey, thanks for coming on, Dabs, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, anytime, guys. If you got another hour, we could sit here and talk. I've got this is what I do for a living anymore, so we got plenty we could expand on.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. The Everlast link, if you want the Nova Tig Torch and Foot Pedal package, will be in the description. You got to order through that link. Edge Welding Cups, code BrynWelds15, and through the link in the description. Mr. Andrew.
And Southern Leatherworks, you can get all custom welding hoods and leather products on southernleatherworks.net. Let's get you set up with your custom welding hood today. Thanks for coming on, Dabs. We really appreciate it, man, and we look forward to talking to you again sometime.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys. I'm sure we'll message back and forth, but I look forward to seeing you guys face-to-face again at Fab Tech, and I'm sure we'll get into some shenanigans down in Florida this time.
Right.
Oh, yeah.